Hey IFS friends. Okay, this breakthrough has been very eye-opening and life-changing for me, and so I wanted to share it because I get so much from examples. And so I had been wondering, it's interesting, lately I've been asking a question to my system of like, oh, why can't I do self-care? Why can't I keep my house clean or whatnot? And this was an answer to that. I was having a hard time doing self-care even when I had the time. So I would, my whole life, I eventually realized I had been in fight or flight the whole time. When like most of my hair fell out, like 2/3 of my hair fell out, and I realized something must be going on. And I looked into it and realized like, yeah, I'm in fight or flight, and I have been as far as I can remember. So, I was saying that to say this. So I had not been too good at self-care my whole life, always overextending, always just doing whatever it took to get things done, kind of from the belief of like, you just have to in order to survive. And I've always had a sense of, so I've always felt like, oh, I'm a good hard worker, and I am mentally tough and physically tough, and I can get things done, and I can push through even if I feel sick or whatever it is. And then it took me a while to realize like, wow, my body's breaking down. Like, this is not a sustainable way to live if you want to live sustainably so that your body lasts and it can serve you and you don't just use it up. So I began shifting out of that, and I've gotten a lot better, but I still had a block on doing enough self-care. And I would, Kitty, you're being very distracting. Just hop up here or stay down there. And so that was one question. Okay, so I had a part of me, how to describe it. So I questioned, why can't I do self-care even when I have the time? When I had the time, I'm like, oh, technically, I could spend this free hour meditating or exercising or go outside, and I wouldn't. And I'd feel resistance to it. So what I discovered was, you wouldn't believe it, my birth parents, I was with my birth parents until the age of about 2, and then with my new parents, who I consider my parents. And my birth parents both became incapacitated in different ways. So one of them did and was out of the picture, and the other one was incapacitated enough that all the kids got couldn't keep it up, and so all the kids got adopted, and which was good for the kids to have a home and whatnot. And then my next set of parents, one of them was overwhelmed, and then the other one ended up needing to do everything. Basically, do everything, the work, just any details, and even a lot of things would fall on that one parent. And so I had a part of me that believed, wow, when both adults in a household tank, they'll lose everything. It'll be worse. It'll be far worse afterwards than it was even during it, while they were getting overwhelmed and struggling. Because then, that's tough to be overwhelmed and tanking and struggling. But then if you both keep tanking, then you can lose your home, your family, your relationship, your everything. And that's way, way, way worse. So I had a belief that I had a part that believed, that carried the trauma of that, and believed if one spouse is tanking, the other spouse has no options. They have to keep it together at all costs. Even if they get sick, even if they're overwhelmed, even if they break down, they have to keep it together, and they have to keep working, and they have to keep the household running. Otherwise, you can lose everything. The family, the safety, the home, basically your life, everything that's in your life, you can lose it all. So with my second set of parents, one of them was quite overwhelmed and incapacitated. The other one kept things running, but wasn't thriving, And there were attempts made throughout my whole childhood to like, okay, let's improve the situation where one's kind of incapacitated, the other one's overwhelmed, like taking on a lot. Let's try and improve that through different things. And it never really changed, which only ingrained in my part the fear of like, I'm doomed. And I've had a background sense of doom my whole life. And I'd like consciously override it and be like, the world is abundant. There's so many opportunities. Like, I'm fine. Why does a part of me feel like I'm doomed? And it was because that model where if one tanks, the other one just has to keep it together. Even if they get sick, they have to just swallow it. They've got to ignore their body. They have to like ignore their self-care if needed in order to keep earning money, keep the household running, which is not sustainable. Eventually they'll crash. And then if the other one hadn't come up yet, if they crash, then both will be crashed, and then you'll have hit, the doom moment where everything falls apart. So I had a part of me that was very terrified of that I wasn't even connected to. I thought I was over it. I thought I wasn't impacted or affected by those experiences and observing those scenarios, but I was. And a part of me was terrified. And so whenever my spouse would tank, it felt very severe for me. And it felt like his parts holding me hostage. If he said like, oh, you know what, I'm really overwhelmed and sick. I can't go to work today. Or I can't do this today. It felt like handcuffs of him saying, here, now you have no choices and you have no options. It's an obligation. You have to, no matter what was going on for you today or how you're feeling, you have to do it. And that's exactly how it felt. Anytime I ever heard my spouse struggle or have an issue, it felt like that was the reaction in me of like imprisoned, stuck, and then very resentful and angry of like, and then his parts would play off of it. And and he'd be like, oh, like, what if just being sick for one day isn't enough? Then like, check it out. I can get sick for a whole month or a whole year. Like, I can tank as hard as I need to in order for your part to take over and be like, okay, fine, I'll keep it together. And so I went through that experience of my spouse being overwhelmed and me keeping it together at all costs. And then also because a part of me just said, we will commit anything to keeping it together. 100% of our energy, our life force, everything will go into keeping it together because we will do whatever it takes to not experience the doom and the falling apart that we've witnessed. And so I got very, very good at doing whatever it took. Like, this needs to get done, okay, I'll get it done. This needs to get done, fine, I'll get done. I'm so tired, but that thing has to get done and I'm upset about it, but I will get it done. And so from the outside, it looked like it was just fine. So like, I didn't even communicate. Neither of us realized. He just would witness me be like, oh, she's fine. She seems happy too. Like it's not a problem at all. And he didn't realize, and I didn't either really, but he didn't realize what was the reality of all of my life force was going into this, and I was crumbling inside from the weight of it. But he didn't realize in such a dire place. So he didn't get any cues of like, I gotta work harder, I gotta help her out more. And then every time he'd say like, so my perception of him in those situations would be resentful, like, you're okay crushing me, you're okay with putting huge burdens on me that are going to crush me, and you don't care, and you're just happy that you're getting taken care of and that you're not in discomfort and you don't have to do it, and you're just, even though your wife this is going to kill her, you're okay with that so long as you get to be comfortable and not have to do the work. That's how it felt to my parts. And then to him from the outside, it seemed like, oh, she's fine. Like, she doesn't mind doing this at all. So all kinds of clarity coming from understanding this part. Whew, okay, so yeah. So I had this part that would do whatever it took to keep the household running. So if spouse was overwhelmed or sick or something, then absolutely I would be working and bringing in the money and keeping everything going and keeping everything running, and there wouldn't be time for self-care. That would be the first thing to get cut. If there wasn't time for it, then too bad. You have to keep working. You have to keep going. And so my health would suffer. And then it got to the point where if it's like, whoa, like I can see, like if you don't eat well or if you don't take care of yourself in these ways, your teeth can, get damaged beyond repair. Your, certain things can get damaged beyond repair. Like this really needs to be a priority. But then I had another part that was worried that if I did stop to do self-care, I would realize just how tired I was. And then I would want to quit that job and be like, no way, like I need self-care and this feels so much better. I'm not about to put on that 500-pound backpack again. I quit. I'm not doing it. So like now I'm tanked, you better do it. And if you don't do it, then I guess we'll fall apart. But I'm not going to do it anymore. And so I had a part that wouldn't even allow self-care even when I had time, because it was worried that I would realize how good it felt and I would not be willing to go back to keeping things together. Okay, so I thought there were some more insights that came with that. If they come up, I'll share them. So then there was so I was comforting and reparenting, and then there was the real question of like, this seems true. Like, crap, how can I give this part a new perspective that would comfort it when this is just the truth. Like, if both adults in a household crumble, there are few options, And here was the other insight. So that part would view its perspective of what it was doing, of like what I was doing, of like I will give my life force, I will give everything to keep the household together to prevent that experience of doom. And so I'm like slaving away and overextending and dying inside. And if someone says like, oh, nice, good, I really enjoy that you'll do that so that I can have a comfortable life, or so I can, reap the benefits of that. That felt so very, very, very disgusting, so repulsive to this part. As if, say, a spouse said, like, you know what, working and providing for the household is, for whatever reasons, whatever parts or trauma I have, it's just soul sucking. It's really torturous. It's horrible. I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. Here, will you do it? Yay. You get your soul sucked out. And that would be just fine with me, because then at least I won't be the one suffering. Like, that's what my part would project onto anyone that I saw do that, and make their partner carry the load alone. And so part of me also didn't ever want to, oh, here we go, the plot thickens, I'm remembering now. This was like a month ago, so some of it was a little fuzzy. A part of me never, ever, 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 ever wanted to do that to someone. Of like, boy, this load is crushing. You know what? I wouldn't mind if you get crushed, as long as I'm not. I'm so happy now that I don't have to do, any hard work, and I don't mind that this crushes you to death. So it never, ever wanted to do that to anyone. And my life right now is shifting, and some new abundance is coming in through the avenue of my spouse. And I think a part of me was getting ready to step down and tank, with the thought of like, oh good, he can carry the load. So now, as long as one spouse is functional, it's okay if the other one's not. So I had been feeling like, for its own reasons, that I needed to carry certain things. And then as soon as it looked like my spouse was going to, it was getting ready to be like, okay, cool, I can tap out. I can finally do self-care. I'll have permission to do self-care once, if my spouse takes over on certain things. So a part of me, I think, was going to tank. Like, that was coming in the future. And it was mortified of that because I didn't ever want to treat someone that way and say, here, let's put all this crushing load on you, and that will be just fine with me. That doesn't bother me at all. So, okay, so then when I was trying to reparent, of like, what perspective can I give it? Because it is true, if all the adults keeping a household running tank, and they're not there to function as adults, the household will no longer exist, and it will also put the load on to someone else. Like maybe a family member will let us move in, and then if we're both tanked and can't even function, then hopefully there will be a third party that will parent us and take care of us and our kids. And then that also felt very repelling to me as well. Like I wouldn't want to put on someone else what I wasn't willing to do myself. Okay, but the new perspective that I found was that the thought or the perspective of if one person tanks, the other one has no choices anymore and is obligated to keep things together at all costs. That was the perspective of my part, that is unsustainable and will eventually lead to that one crashing as well. And so that's where that underlying doom was existing in me my whole life. And so the new perspective is, even if one partner is tanked, and one is at the level where they're currently keeping the household running or doing certain things, they don't have to just swallow everything and like swallow their issues, swallow their emotions to try to keep it together. They can do self-care. They can take, and that's the beauty of a partnership, is that you can support each other. You can take turns, even if the other person can only come up for 5 minutes or for a week to relieve the other person. The other person can take a break for self-care. And you can also have people outside your partnership support you. So you can do 5 minutes of self-care or a day of self-care, or, you can pull in support from your partner or from other people or from other resources. And you can do self-care and heal yourself, even if you're also doing a big load. And both people can. And if both people will take turns always doing some little bit of self-care ongoing every day or every week or at least once a month, and they're chipping away at their own stone that they're carrying on their back, both of their stones will get smaller and smaller. So the future and the horizon will look brighter and brighter, because if both people's burdens are getting lighter, their future functioning level will always be rising, and their capacity will always be increasing. So that's my new perspective and new game plan. And it has been like life-changing. So I just wanted to share that.